going on, Jerome's? NFL offseason is unfortunately upon us here for the Minnesota Vikings. And free agency before the draft, and the Vikings, they got a lot of cash. They got a lot of cash to be able to make some moves. Estimated $78 million in cap space per spot rack, fourth most in the National Football League. Kwesi now has a chance to play true money ball because got the Kirk Cousins deal off the books, Danielle Hunter's off the books, Marcus Davenport's off the books, and since slinging Sammy Darnold, a.k.a. America's quarterback, decided, probably don't want to be part of this team. Vikings have significant savings at the quarterback position, rolling with J.J. McCarthy, which was always the plan. And now they got all the monies. Yes, they have their own free agents, but all the monies to spend in free agency because so now Kwesi can follow up the greatest free agent class in NFL history last season with Grenard, AVG, Blake Cashman outside. How about that? Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones with version 2.0, which may be even better since you got way more cash to make some aggressive moves. But you can always find more money, right? So the Vikings have a ton of cap space, but they could still squeeze out more because there's a couple players on the Vikings that I love. Well, some of them I love, but they definitely could be cap casualties this offseason because they have a high cap number, they have low guarantees, and there's a couple things. Number one, the player could be convinced to take a pay cut to remain on the team, and generally what happens is, say that a player's cap number is $7 million, right? Say that his base salary due was going to be $5 million. Maybe you reduce it down to $2.5 million, maybe $1 million or so with incentives likely or not likely to be earned. But the player then you backfill that $2.5 million guaranteed, so the player gets a little bit of guarantee heading into training camp versus a number where they could just be cut at any time for any reason. Before the start of the season, right? So players will trade some fictional money for some guarantees, and that's where the Vikings currently could be at with some of these guys, or they could just be gone. All right. And we listed 5 potential cap casualties for the Vikings. Number 1, tight end Josh Oliver. So the Vikings signed him from Baltimore, a 3-year, $21 million deal. Now, a couple of people raised eyebrows because, well, you have Hockenson. Why are you spending $21 million on a blocking tight end? Josh Oliver is indeed the best blocking tight end in the game. Now, it hasn't translated into the Vikings' run game getting to where it needs to be because there's a lot of other functional issues in the run game, but Josh Oliver definitely is not a problem, man. Also, he's really developed as a nice tertiary receiving option this year. 22 catches, 258 on 3 touchdowns on 28 targets. So I would like to have Oliver back. He's still firmly in his prime. I would prefer Oliver even at the cost of versus bringing back Johnny Munt. And I do like Nick Muse as tight end 3, but they could do something with his contract as he's headed into year 3 of his deal. He has a $9.4 million cap number. They could save $5.15 million by moving on. Nothing guaranteed left in his contract, but I think the Vikings could work something out, maybe even an extension at a lower number, and then go from there. Then center Garrett Bradbury, who we talked about earlier in the week, it's time to move on. Right, Bradbury is going to be on the wrong side of 30. He's got those back issues, and he's still – the issues that Bradbury had coming into the league are still the same issues. We're just getting forklifted into the lap of the quarterback, and it's just not great, right? 38 pressures, 4 sacks this season, 37 pressures in the regular season, which is the worst among centers in the league. He's been bottom 3 and 4 in terms of pass blocking grade in PFF, 4 of his 6 seasons in the league. It's just not been – I mean, how many times do we have to keep doing this? Right, and the Vikings can save $3.6 million by letting him go, $6.6 million cap hit this season, so it does make sense. And if you want to rebuild the offensive line from soup to nuts, start in the middle and go from there. Also, there's a couple of offensive linemen who could be getting their walking paper. So Blake Brandel, this offseason, signed a 3-year, $9 million deal, but of course it was one of the Kwesi Roberzinski specials where all of the guaranteed money is in year 1. So even though it's a 3-year deal, really what it is, it's a 1-year deal with a couple of team options on the back end. And Brandel started out nice. So he's a 2026 round pick out of the Oregon State University, kicked inside from left tackle into guard and been a valuable backup. They signed him last year, basically handing him one of the starting spots, and it started out great. And then the rest of it, maybe not so much, right? He is only 28. He's got a $3.92 million cap hit. Zero goose egg. D'Angelo Russell of it is guaranteed. The Vikings can move on, saving just over $2.5 million. 46 pressures, 9 sacks last year. And it was just a problem. Also, just a myriad of penalties, many of them in a couple of bad spots, killing drives, and it's just do a lot better. So basically, the entire interior offensive line can be gutted. Reisner doesn't have to be back for year 3. Bradbury can be gone. Brandel can be gone. And also Ed Ingram, even though he's only heading into year 4 of his rookie deal, that's the thing. Like, second and third and fourth round picks, their 4th year generally like bumps up quite a bit in terms of base salary. Now, none of that is guaranteed, and what it is that teams can decide, hey, we're done with him after 3 years, let him go, he can find somewhere else. Or if he does stay, that player gets a little bit of cash. So that's what it is. Where Ingram is only 26 and just hasn't worked out. He was a 2 multi-year starter, and then this year he started the season at right guard, eventually giving way to Reisner. But even only starting half the season, about 500 snaps, he gave up 24 pressures and 5 sacks, and it just wasn't great. Right, he's got a $3.7 million cap hit next year. The Vikings can save $3.325 million by moving on. I think they move on. Or this is a spot too where a lot of these guys' base salaries don't guarantee at all, at not the third day of the new league year, not anything. So it could be a spot where you bring in the new guys in training camp, you see what they can do, and eventually you part ways. Certainly happens. Lastly, fullback CJ Ham. I don't want to do this because he's one of my favorite players, and I think that he can still functionally serve a role. He's one of the few teams in the league that still deploy a fullback. We need to make fullbacks great again. And CJ Ham, special teams captain, gets after it. The pride of Duluth, the pride of Augustana, go Vikings. But he is 32. And his cap number next year is 3.4. 0 of his base salary is guaranteed. The Vikings can save $2.65 million. Now, Ham would be the guy, like Oliver, where it would make sense to redo his deal, right? Just give him a fresh contract, a little bit guaranteed, but reduce that cap number, reduce the cap hit, and just go from there, right? And CJ, he had a touchdown this season, 45 total yards to scrimmage. He wasn't used in the offense as much as you would like, but he does have 4 tackles on special teams as well, and he's a great leader. I think he's great for the locker room. And in an offseason where the Vikings could lose some veteran leadership, it would be great to have CJ Ham stick around, because even though, maybe it isn't used as much in the offense, but just having him on the team, having him play special teams makes a lot of sense. Lastly, bonus, Brian O'Neill. Now, it's not going to happen, right? But O'Neill is definitely a candidate for a new contract where they can lower his cap number, they can give him some guaranteed money because his deal is out of guarantees, and just go from there, just to make sure that he finishes his career as a Viking. Because O'Neill, even though the playoff game wasn't great, he still had one of his best seasons of his career, if not the best. He was snubbed in the All-Pro and Pro Bowl voting, but it's really hard to do when you got Penei Sewell and Lane Johnson in this league. It is what it is. But O'Neill is 30, but he's due at $26.02 million cap hit next year, by far leading the team. He has 0 goose egg DeAndre Russell guaranteed left in his contract. The Vikings they're not going to do it, but if they cut him, they would say $14.3 million. But no, he definitely would be a new contract, lower cap number, give him some guarantees and some assurances going forward the next couple years type guy. But there's always more money to be made. The Vikings could legitimately, either through cap casualties and simple restructures, have $100 million in cap space to really swing and just do a lot of things. But it's going to be a lot of fun coming up February, March, the moves that the Vikings make to really rebuild this team specifically, and hopefully the offensive line, as well as adding a corner, and then draft hammer defensive interior and running back. And we'll go from there. Anyways, your thoughts are thoughts. 5 potential cap casualties for the Vikings. You're not getting rid of Brian O'Neill. Let us know your thoughts, our thoughts, comment section. You guys know what to do. Skull, production value.